All right, so just wanted to touch on the Belmont Stakes week as a whole. Get to the undercard races in a second, but just talk about the experience first and foremost, because this is the second year of 3 years. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but it seems as if the third year of the Belmont at Saratoga will be next year, and then starting in 2027, it'll be back at the new Belmont Park. It was, it wasn't quite as crowded as it was last year. The announced attendance was like a little over 46,000 compared to 50,000 last year. I will say it didn't seem quite as crowded. I think that's perhaps because the rain. It rained all day, all morning on Saturday. I think that kept some people away. It was still kind of uncomfortably crowded. I think that it should be 45,000 max, but now we're splitting hairs here. If it was 46,000, I think that annoyed some people. I think, and I think that you kind of got to be a little bit quicker on your feet with these things. Is the spacing of the races. Now I understand that the Belmont, you got the TV responsibilities and obligations, so you can't move the race too much and then miss your broadcasting window. But I just thought having like 50, 60, 65, 70 minutes between races on Saturday, like it's already a long day as it is. Like first post was what, 11 o'clock, 10:45, something like that. And the last race went off after 8 o'clock. Like these days are just too long. It's not just the Belmont, like the Derby day, like these cards are just too long. There's too long between races. Like if you want to keep people's attention, I think you got to run these races in quicker succession. I know you want to soak up all the betting handle and all the concession money that you possibly can, but that was my only real complaint because it wasn't quite as crowded as last year. But John, that was a long, long day waiting for all those races.
It makes for a long day. And I was in Jersey, and it was a long day just kind of waiting. And I had the opportunity to do various things in between. So I can't imagine what it was like on the track, because if you had to be there for the first race, it means you're getting up at 8, 9 in the morning and getting your zoot suit on, and you're wearing it for good 12 hours at that point. That does make for a long day. And you were out there entertaining investors and clients and stuff like that. So I'm sure by the end of the day you were ready for a good stiff drink. After
during the day too.
Exactly. But
yeah.
I think that NYRA was put in a tough position because of Mother Nature. And when you combine that with, hey, we're on national television on top of it, so we have to adhere to the contract that we have, with the channel. I understand where they're coming from. New York has been, kind of the spearhead of, hey, if we're going to have a day, then we're going to have a huge day. And we're going to, they were the ones, if I remember correctly, they were the ones who really implemented the super card, where they put, purposely they put like 6 grade ones on a card. And I love that. I love that as somebody in the business and somebody who has rooting interest and obviously with the show, we're going to be watching all of these important races. So I would love to be able to sit and watch, race after race after the race, almost like a 6-month preview of the Breeders' Cup. The weather really hurt them. They had to pivot and make some decisions about what races were going to be off the turf and which ones are going to be postponed to the next day. It's not an easy decision, especially when you have to take into consideration that if you take a race off the turf, it's going to scratch down, and it's going to immediately be knocked down from a grading standpoint, from a 1 to a 2 or 2 to a 3. And that hurts overall their resume as far as a racetrack. So there's a lot of factors that get put into the pie, baked into the pie before they actually have to pull the trigger and make a decision. But Mother Nature kind of waylaid them. Now, can you say, okay, well, now with the Breeders' Cup coming there in a couple of years, it could be the same problem? Any racetrack, it could be the same problem. If you get a piss down rain, and we know it from the one time it was at Monmouth Park, if you just get a bad window of weather, you're screwed, and you can't really do anything about that, other than to say, well, we should have had an alternative plan. Well, what's the alternative plan? You're going to move the Breeders' Cup from New Jersey or New York to Kentucky? Because the weather, there's no way logistically or logically you would do something like that. So sometimes you just have to play the hand that you're dealt. And I think that they were able to be nimble enough to move a couple of the races, the grade 1 races, to the following day, albeit again on another long card. But they got the results that they wanted, and they get to keep the grade 1 statuses of those races. And I think that, we'll talk about those 2 races, but I thought that the Jaipur was an exciting race, and certainly, the last race on the card on Sunday was really exciting, primarily because, Miguel Clement won his first graded stake and
Yep.
won his first grade 1 stake after taking over for his recently departed father.
Yeah, I'm going to mention that, and obviously in a second. The more I think about it, the more I think 101 million actually was pretty good, because the race getting Manhattan and the Jaipur getting canceled knocked out both the pick 6 and the late pick 5,
good point. Yeah.
which would have handled a ton. And I don't know this answer. Like, why could we not have just rejiggered the races to have the late pick 5 be on the last 5 races going into the Belmont? Like, I wonder, like, logistically or technologically why that wasn't possible. Maybe Pat McKenna will email me, the hardest working communications director in America.
Yeah.
Has like a Naira alert anytime anybody says Naira, I think.
Naira. There you go. Now we know. Get it.
Thank you, John. Thank you for gaming the algorithm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd love to hear that from Pat, why we couldn't just redo those sequences. But yeah, I think overall they did the best they could with a pretty bad situation weather-wise. And as you mentioned, running the other grade 1s on Sunday, you still got pretty much the full fields that you would have had.
Right.
The distance was a little bit different in the Manhattan, which was not great for the most snake bit horse in America integration. If they had run the race a day earlier, like, he gets up and he finally gets his grade 1. But if you're going to, I mentioned this when we previewed the race, if we were going to lose, it's okay to lose to Miguel and the Clement team, and just super happy for them. I was really happy for them. They got their first win Wednesday in the closer at Saratoga. So that was great to get off the duck early in the week.
Yep.
And then kind of just, you can settle in and do what you would normally do. So yeah, Deterministic, wire to wire, great ride by Kendrick Carmouche as is typical on the lead. And yeah, I don't know if you saw the interview that Casse did with Miguel after the race. That was so sweet. And just so perfectly handled by both of them. I thought, all class as usual, and would have obviously made Christoph very proud.
No question about it. And I was really pleased. I thought that overall, Joe, there was some good feelings going on, whether it was, that story and Clement winning a grade 1 and being interviewed by his wife, or even after the Belmont, the first 2 the jockeys on the horses that finished first and second, both like hugged each other's horses, which I thought was really cool. I mean, that you don't see that too often in our industry, because we're all so competitive, and we all want, to be, especially when we have something in the race, we all want to beat everybody else. But it was great to see that first and foremost. Again, I'm not going to sit here and hold hands and sing Kumbaya with everybody, because that's just not the way. But it was nice to see that there were some good stories that were developing, and good people were winning races, and and I think that's hopefully the pendulum has swung to where you get to root for people instead of looking at the racing form or the program, and you're like, oh, I'm going to root, I have to root against this horse because of the connections, not even necessarily because of the horse. So hopefully there's more goodwill that's being born out of some of these stories.
Yeah, I love that video so much of Junior and Rispoli after the race, embracing each other and then embracing each other's horses, which I had never seen before.
No.
I'd never seen a jockey reach over and hug somebody else's horse on the racetrack, but that was so sweet, and I think just showed the level of respect that they have for each other and for those horses, and that we all should have from both of them and for both of those horses, because it was a phenomenal Triple Crown season. It was a great season. Obviously it was a downer that Sovereignty didn't run in the Preakness, but besides that, it was pretty much everything we could have asked for. And like I said, getting a lot of attention outside of these walls of the racing industry, and giving people, people taking notice of these phenomenal horses and this phenomenal game. And it was, it was a feel good Triple Crown season overall. Just to touch on a couple of the other undercard races from the weekend, Raging Torrent was crazy impressive in holding off Fierceness. Got a 106 buyer. Maximus Mischief, a little bit of an underrated sire that I like a little bit. Bookham Dano and a really, really strong renewal of the True North. Wore down Mullikins. That was really exciting. Ways and Means got a 111 buyer for her win in the Bed of Roses. She's pretty clearly the top sprinting filly in the country right now. She feels pretty winning the New York, and she showed that she doesn't just have to blow you out. Like, she can win a dog fight, because that horse, to her insight, was not going away, and she was able to wear her down over a very, very soggy turf course. They ran a mile and 3/16 in 2 minutes.
I know, crazy.
Like, that's not even that great of a time for a mile and a quarter.
Right.
Over a firm turf. But John, I know there's one or two other horses you wanted to touch on as well.
Well, I think you should definitely talk about Patch Adams and the fact that he won impressively the Woody Stevens, the great one Woody Stevens, another Into Mischief out of a Distorted Humor mare. It's not the first time, Joe, that you and I have talked about Distorted Humor mares and how well their progeny have done on the racetrack. E.g. Sandman. Anyway, so we feel like that that's obviously a broodmare sire that is on the radar for sure. And let's talk a little bit about you mentioned Bookham Dano, which is a New Jersey bred and near and dear to my heart because he's from the Garden State, overlooked, and basically all he does is just run wherever you put him, which is fantastic. But how about the fact that not one, not two, not three, but 4 homebreds won stake races over the weekend, as large as Sovereignty winning the Belmont, Lucara winning the Acorn, East Avenue making his return, winning the Matt Win, and then of course our Nitrogen winning the Wonder again. I just don't remember the time where you had 4 high profile horses like that win big races, big stake races, all graded stake races. And in a day and age where, the majority of horses go through a sale, whether it's as a weanling, a yearling, or as a 2-year-old. And not only didn't any of those go through sales, but they stayed with their breeders and are paying dividends for their respective breeders and owners.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be extra satisfying, and Nitrogen in particular was incredibly impressive, even though it was only a 3-horse field. That was a public workout. And I went to see her on Sunday morning. Maybe we can put that video up. She's a total sweetheart.
She is
very proud of herself. It's so funny. Like, it's a horse that had like maybe the most impressive undercard performance on Saturday, and then just visually at least, and then there's like nobody by her stall, and then like 3 stalls down, everybody's feeding Sandman peppermints for like an hour and a half straight. It's like, dude, it's just horse gonna get diabetes or something. Like, he's got a steady diet of peppermints. I'm no expert on horse digestion, but
right. No, exactly. But thankfully he's like 1,100 pounds. So, if he eats a bag of peppermints, not that I would recommend it, but if he eats a bag of peppermints, it's not going to affect him as much. But, the fun thing about Nitrogen is that she knows she's a queen. Like, she's totally cool with being able to look out on her stall and see what's going on and take everything in. She doesn't necessarily need the public attention, but she does love a good neck rub. She does love a good neck scratch, and she does love people, which is really cool. Because sometimes you get these horses that think they're King Kong and they don't want anything to do with anybody. But she's such a down to earth kind of neat filly to be around. It's really fun. Joe, not to continue to toot our own horn, but it is our podcast, so I'm allowed to do this. But I was watching the Fury stake where we had Shifty at 2-5 and Winterberry in there. And Winterberry ended up turning the tables on Shifty and won impressively. And then like 20 minutes later, we had Nitrogen winning the Wonder again. And I have to tell you that I don't think I exhaled from the moment that the Canadian horses went in the gate until after the race was official for Nitrogen, because there was just so much excitement and stress and potential. And did we make the right decision? Did we not make the right decision? And we'll talk to Mark Casse about what went into it. But literally at 12:30, which was like an hour before before the Wonder again, we had that fateful conversation with Mark Casse. Like the stewards gave us until an hour before post time to make a final decision about whether we were going to run. And at the time, we were like a coin flip as far as whether or not we were going to run actually in the Wonder again or not, run her on the dirt or not. And thankfully we made the right decision, not only because she won, but because she came out of it unscathed. And really, if you look at it, I think she ran like a 1/5 of a second slower than the Met Mile.
Yeah, but you can't really say that. Like,
well, you can say that.
It's a different.
It's not that she would have won. I'm not saying she would have won the Met Mile, but go ahead.
But yeah, it's a totally different distance, a totally different configuration. So it doesn't really matter. I don't think, unless You want to prove it
how about
and run
this?
her against fierceness next time out.
How about this? How about the fact that she ran a 91 buyer and the winner, Lacara, the winner of the Acorn, ran a 93? Is that a better comparable? Even though the Acorn wasn't also a mile, but is that more fair?
Yes.
Okay.
They're both 3-year-old fillies. Like I said, if you want to run in the Whitney with nitrogen, you're free to do so.
I appreciate you giving me the approval and the allowing me to do that.
If that's the insinuation you're making, then let's see it.
I'm saying that I think that our homebred is good.
I'm not saying she's just good. She's great. That doesn't mean she would have won the Met Mile.
I'm not saying she would have won the Met Mile. I'm just trying to get us some kind of a comparable. But anyway, let's not digress. It was a great racing weekend, and I'm glad that it happened and that everything, for all intents and purposes, turned out the way it should have.
Yeah, no, it was great, and shout out to everybody at NYRA and all the horses and the trainers for putting on a tremendous show. Everybody's in a good mood as always at Saratoga, and it's a nice little precursor for the summer meet coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Yep, and just as a plea, David O'Rourke, we would love to have you on the show. We would love to talk to you about what happened at the Belmont weekend, why you made these changes. I mean, we understand as far as from a contractual standpoint, some of these, nimble changes you had to make, but we'd also love to hear about what's going on with the Belmont racetrack itself, and that project, and also like what to expect for the upcoming meet at Saratoga. So we put out this plea to you, David O'Rourke, or people who are handling his schedule, that we would love to have you on the show.
100%. I mean, we already put up the Pat McKenna bat signal. Now we're directly begging David O'Rourke to come on. Let's say Glenn Kozak too. Glenn Kozak, the track superintendent, who is in charge of a lot of the Belmont construction. Glenn would be a lovely guest as well. So yeah, someone at NYRA, come talk to us, please.
Please.